very welcome to the Coffee at 11 show this beautiful Thursday morning. Delighted to be coming to you courtesy of wigwam.ie SME peer support. Delighted to have my special guest, a lady I've known and admired for some years now, Patricia Roberts of No1 Pery Square. Patricia, would you say hello and show us your coffee cup? I'm sure you have one.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Colm, and all your team for having me on the show this morning.
You're more than welcome, Patricia, and it's a team effort. Delighted and very blessed with the team we have, as you've met them all before the show. So let me just tell you a little bit about my guest this morning, then we'll bring the lady in herself to tell us the story in her own words. So Patricia Roberts' business name, No1 Pery Square Townhouse Hotel, Restaurant and Spa. What does your business do? She says it offers overnight unique accommodation. Love that word, unique thrown in there. Overnight unique accommodation, food and spa experiences for our customers, both in the leisure and corporate international market. How long established? 11 years. How many employees? 40. So Patricia's a native of Clarina, County Limerick, born into a family dairy farm business. She's the eldest of 5 girls, went to school in Limerick, naturally I presume, studied third level at Brewer Street and completed business and hotel and catering management in GMIT, which somewhat surprised me given Shannon College out the road. So we'll be curious about that chain of events. Gained experience internationally and at home and had the urge to be self-employed from the get-go. She started her first business in 2000, a marketing service for independent hotels, and went on to create the Select Hotels of Ireland brand. Sounds lovely, for independent Irish hotels, and then sold this business in 2010. She loves historic houses on the Irish countryside, loves tourism and seeking out unique hotel experiences. And she says, I enjoy creating experiences with the customer at heart. And any of us that have had the pleasure of meeting Patricia and her team in No1 Pery Square will absolutely concur with that one. She opened No1 in 2008, 2009. I'm sensing difficult timing there, dare I say it. I'm going to touch on that. Just over 10 years in operation now, planning for the next chapter, which is very exciting. And then something nobody knows about, and I certainly did, and this is a curveball for sure. Patricia actually wants to be an airline pilot. There you go. Patricia, great pleasure having you in the cafe. Thank you for joining us this morning. So, in your own words, bring us back to the dairy farm in County Limerick and bring us up through those early years, please.
Sure. Okay, I suppose, yeah, as you said, I'm from Clarina, just out the road. I see some neighbours there. Hi, Ger. Just out the road. I was born into both my parents farmed, dairy farm business, small dairy farm business. I am the oldest of 5 girls. So, as you can imagine, 5 girls in a dairy farm business, it was quite unique. The sun never arrived. So we had always had jobs to be done. We were always dragged out and about. It wasn't a very glamorous upbringing, but a great upbringing. When you were made to stand at someone's gate to hoard cattle, not glamorous at all. But it was a great upbringing. As I said, I was the oldest of 5 girls. And my parents worked hard every day, and hotels, God, it's, I had to think long and hard about what made me do hotel management when the time come to study and move on from home and so forth. But I suppose I probably had romantic notions of the hotel world back then, being a very glamorous lifestyle and something that I could travel with. But I suppose really where it all stemmed from was the love of great food and the love of travel and the love of tourism. I suppose those things combined is where it probably all stemmed from. And as I grew in life, I did, I suppose, gain a real love of historic properties and architecture properties. And I suppose that combined with tourism. So I suppose there's lots of nuggets when I look back as to where I am today. Brewer Street, Colm, you asked about why Brewer Street. I had a couple of neighbours actually at home in Clarina who studied at Brewer Street, and friends of my mother's children, and they went and they had great experiences, and I think it was just maybe pinpointed for me then at that point. And the bright lights of Dublin was very attractive to a country girl, and but I do remember landing in Dublin, and I'll always remember my first day. It was a big shock. Back then, Brewer Street, it was a great place. I was really lucky. Some of my chef lecturers in particular, the likes of Kevin Thornton and some great people who were still in full-time academia at the time, and gave us a great grounding on the culinary side of especially the Irish culinary world at the time. So I spent a couple of years there. I actually went to GMIT to finish my degree in hotel and catering business management. I suppose throughout my time in college, you know, as you do as a student, you wonder, do you want to go down the hotel route, the catering route? There was always lots of opportunities. And I do remember my parents being very supportive of that, because hotel management, you'd always have a job. You know, there was always that sense you'd always have a job. I was very lucky. I got opportunities here in Limerick. I worked at the Royal George Hotel as a waitress, and I got to work at the Woodlands Hotel and all those great places that, you know, to see, you know, do you like this business? And we were, and I think we all were as family, shoved into jobs at a young age to see, well, first of all, to work and to understand what it was like to work, but also to see, did you like what you wanted to do before you actually committed so many years and your parents' money to studying. So that was good. So went off to Colbrew Street, a couple of years there. As I said, moved on to GMIT to do the degree. And the reason for that was I actually spent a summer in the States on a J1, as many people do back then. And that summer, I had a great job down in Cape Cod, made loads of money on tips, and came back and bought my first car. So I wasn't allowed to drive to Dublin, but I was allowed to drive to Galway. So that was the deciding factor. I wanted my car, and I wanted the freedom. So drove up and down to Galway. Yeah. And I have a family in Galway. I'm very blessed. I have a great family, not just immediate, but wider circle, who've supported me always. And so I had a year in Galway, and Galway was just amazing. As anyone knows who spent time there, an amazing place to live and study. Hard to study, but great place to live. But a fantastic life experience. So from there then, you know, I travelled. I spent some time in Scotland, as I said, the States, here in Ireland. I worked back in its heyday, Tinakilly Country House in Wicklow. You know, back in the 90s, when it really was an amazing place, and worked for William and B. Power. I was there for a couple of years and got an opportunity to run a smaller property for them. And I got a really good insight into hotels from a small owner operations from an early stage of my career. I did also spend some time in the contract catering world, but it was just never enough for me. I just, you know, I liked the whole hotel world and creating experiences, and I suppose the madness of it all. As I do say, you need to be crazy to be in this business, and it's kind of true. And again, as things evolve, you realize you need to be actually probably mad, but anyway. So let me
pause you there. Let me pause you there for a moment, because we're trying to keep up. It's a phenomenal journey so far. Things that struck me, if I may, you had Romantic Notions back in the day, and I'm going to show my age here. It was a series on television called Hotel, and it was this glamorous portrayal of everything, you know, that could possibly go right in the hotel world. And you know, the reality is, having been in hospitality for years, the reality is the punter gets to see the outside. They get to see, you know, beyond the kitchen door, beyond the wash-up door, right, all the stuff. But there's a huge engine has to go on underneath any service operation, and so it's not always glamorous, that is for sure. But I loved the fact that you were very honest and said that there were romantic notions around that. You have a love for food, travel and tourism. When you put all that together, it makes perfect sense that you would look at hotels. And you know, when you did the contract catering, realised that wasn't enough for you. And I get that because it's one avenue, very important avenue of the catering world, but it's definitely very different to hospitality per se. And love the fact, even though I'm a Dub, right, I love the fact that your parents wouldn't let you go to Dublin, wouldn't let you drive to Dublin, but they let you drive to Galway. And then by your own admission, all these years later, great place to live, very hard to study there, right? Might have been easier to study in Dublin. All right, Patricia, we're excited. Tell us where we are now. Thanks.
Yes, so I suppose from there, you know, after I always had the urge to be self-employed. I think, you know, that was there from a young age, probably too young in many ways. So, you know, plus I suppose I wanted to come back to Limerick. I did see, you know, when I did come back to Limerick, which is over 20 years ago now, I suppose, you know, I always felt Limerick as a city was unfairly treated by the media and by the world in general. And I always saw a lot of hope for Limerick. So I suppose my first business was a small marketing business, which I had fostered through a lot of networks that I was involved in, the Irish Hospitality Institute. One was being one in particular. I made amazing friends, lifelong friends there who I connected well with, who became actually clients of mine, customers of mine through my first business, which after a period of about 2 years, I developed the brand Select Hotels of Ireland. That was back in 2002. And, you know, I had Select for probably, I think, about 8 years, and I loved it. I traveled the world with it. It was a marketing consortium set up to aid the small independent Irish hotel gain exposure in the international marketplace. So I was very lucky with that. I created quite an intensive plan, marketing and sales plan, as well as developing the Select Hotels brand. And I traveled the world with that brochure, which was a great experience in itself, traveling the world with Fáilte Ireland, Tourism Ireland internationally, and lots of other great Irish marketeers around Ireland. Many of them are still doing it, and some aren't. So, you know, that was really good to me. I had that business for 8 years, but I had the urge to do my own hotel. And back in 2006, Ireland, the hotel world in Ireland was changing drastically. We saw the likes of Days Inns and all these monotonous brands shooting up in small towns of Ireland. And, you know, I just always remember saying, like, where is the business for all these? Where is the business? How will something, yes, great for employment, great for a town to see a large brand open a hotel in a small provincial town in Ireland, but I could never see where it was all going. And lo and behold, I suppose most of them did disappear since, but they were very much supported, I suppose, by the banks at the time. So I always felt there, the more of that was happening, the more I had an urge, I suppose, to develop something that was true, unique Irish hospitality. And so that combined with the love of period properties, historic properties, that's where number one was born back in 2006. So at that time, I suppose number one just was to be a country house in the city, and something that I would own and operate myself. And I suppose I quickly realized that Select Hotels, I couldn't do both, that this was going to require 24/7, just require me to be here 24/7. I suppose the world was falling apart at that time, but we didn't quite realize it. 2007, well, we did by 2008. So I sold Select Hotels to a very good friend of mine in the travel business who wanted to spread or widen his portfolio of business. And today that's thriving, and you know, it's a wonderful business. I got what I wanted from it. I was really happy, and it was an amazing business. And I suppose what it did give me, one of the most important things it gave me, was I stayed in a different hotel all over the world every night of the week for so many years. So I really got to see the small important things that you need to give your guest to create those magic moments for why people buy into a hotel experience. So I was very, very lucky. All that traveling then went out the window once number one opened. Number one opened in December 2008 and early 2009. I suppose we're as I say, we're three businesses under one roof. We're a food business, a hotel business, and a spa business. You know.
Okay. So let's pause there for a moment. Great stuff, absolutely wonderful stuff. Made a couple of notes here. You urged to be self-employed from very early on. Your own admission, possibly even a little too early. But I don't think there's any harm in that, to be honest. Irish Select Hotels, that was a lovely brand, and you obviously built a business. I love the fact that you traveled the world and you got to see the glamorous side of honestly, that's what you did, right? You know, and it was your business. It was maybe sense. You learn a huge amount, which you've applied into No. 1 Pery Square. You're sitting in one of the rooms there.
Townhouse suite at the top. Yeah.
Townhouse suite at the top. So you've taken all the lessons from those travels and applied them into the guest experience in No. 1 Pery Square, which is just wonderful. We touched earlier, I mentioned when I was introducing you about the timing around 2008, 2009. Of course, we didn't see what was coming. So you'd committed at that stage, and then all of a sudden you were in it, and the world fell off a cliff, but you found yourself in it anyway. How many hotels did you have in Irish Select Hotels at the time?
At the time, I had 25, and I think it's grown maybe to the early 30s now. The Ordelon, a lot of very famous hotels, Ordelon Hotel in Galway, Renville House up in Galway, lots of famous hotels. We had the Castle Oaks here in Limerick, and lots of real well-established Irish independent hotels who needed a voice, and it was very difficult at the time for them to have a voice in the international market to go it alone, but at the same time did not want to lose their identity to a larger chain or multiple and bring the likes of a Marriott over their door, something like that, a larger chain. So Select was a platform for those hotels. And I suppose even though I'm no longer part of it, it is wonderful to know that it has grown so much and produces a lot of business for those hotels. And it's a great brand for the Irish family 3-4 star hotel market.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, Patricia. It sounds wonderful, and I think there's great merit in that. You touched on two things. Firstly, you bring them all together, and all of a sudden they've got clout, whereas individually they don't have that. So there's magic in that. The second thing that I think has been hugely important to you, and what I think you've identified already, is the fact that it gave you a platform and it allowed you to develop and create a network, which is very vibrant for you to this day. And you're held in such high regard. When we put out the message that you're coming to the Coffee at 11 show, in the last 24 hours, the place lit up with well-wishers from all over. So you're held in very high regard, and for all the right reasons. So we're now in No. 1 Pery Square, right? You've committed. Was it the building or series of buildings that we know today, or was it smaller? Have you expanded? You mentioned you've got 3 businesses in one. Please.
Yeah, no, it is as it was back then. I suppose it was, but we had a 2-year development phase because we're dealing with a listed property. And I suppose the upside to that at the time was there was a lot of anticipation about the opening. There was a lot of curiosity. And I suppose a lot of people who thought that we were crazy, even a lot of my own family, why Pery Square? Nobody drives up around Pery Square. And, there was a lot of that. But I suppose I could see the square awakening. I could see once the lights were turned on that we could open up a beautiful part of Limerick. And, and I suppose at the time we branded it the Georgian Quarter, and I felt that's what it deserved. And, it had the physical assets were here. It just needed people. And so, that vision was clear. It has taken a little bit longer to get there, but the vision was clear that, and still to this day, I do believe there's loads of opportunity here for residential living and urban living. And, modern urban living in Limerick City, I think is when that day, and I believe it's coming, and I know lots of people considering it, and we already have neighbours here, which is great, but we need more neighbours. Yeah, but going back to 2008, I suppose we quickly realised the world was falling apart, probably naively, not until about 12 to 18 months after opening, because we were so busy just, getting to know a new building, a period property, and making it work for the customer and for us operationally. But as soon as we did, I suppose we focused in on, is there really a market for this through a recession? Is there... will something like No. 1 survive? Can it survive? We focused in on all of that at the time. And I suppose going back to why we I suppose created No. 1 was very much to, afford people a true, genuine Irish hospitality experience in a period property. So I was very strong in my belief that that market was there, albeit very small. So we focused on, the team and I suppose, very much on just minding each and every individual customer that came through the door and hoping that they would help us spread the word about No. 1. And, you know, we didn't have big budgets for marketing and advertising. So we just focused on the customer, and I think in the 10 years we don't do advertising. The marketing is very much internal based. We are part of Ireland's Blue Book, which is wonderful, and the media have been good to us in associations, you know. But working that customer, I think, was crucial to our success. Working each individual as they come through the door, looking after them, and making sure that we created the magic that they wanted from their trip, whether it was a cup of coffee or an overnight stay or a 4-night break in Limerick. And I think that has worked for us, you know.
I believe it has. I believe it has. It worked in spades, dare I say it. A couple of things. I see Tim Kelly giving you the Bula bus there. Those of us that are fortunate enough to be based around the Midwest know No1 Pery Square. And the magic, you use that word several times actually, magic and magic moments, and it's absolutely true. I had a cause to have a supper one evening there a couple of years back with a friend in that room overlooking the square, and it was evening time, it was dark, it was winter time, it began to snow, and it was seriously, Disney couldn't have done it better, right? It was just wonderful, right? Yeah. So yeah, hats off to you. It's just gorgeous. A couple of things. You had a vision and you stuck to it despite all the evidence suggesting, Patricia, you're mad. You stuck to it. You also said that you decided to focus on the individual guest. And let's be honest, folks, every experience, every hospitality experience, every experience in any field is actually about the individual guest, right? It's Johnny and Mary and Peter and Paul and all these people who come in one at a time. It's not about the overall, because at the end of the day, they only experience it themselves. So it would appear, Patricia, that your vision has worked and you've got a lovely team who follow through with that. You mentioned that you're a member of Blue Book. I did know that, but you've given me license to ask, what's the difference, dare I ask, between Blue Book and Irish Select Hotels? Because I wanted to ask that question earlier, but I didn't want to cause any ruffles.
Sure. The Blue Book is much more smaller properties. First of all, it's around a lot longer. I think it's around about 30 years or more. Blue Book started out as a restaurants association, so it was predominantly food-based as opposed to bedroom-based. And most of, a lot of the properties in the Blue Book are restaurant only. So it was established as a restaurants association, I suppose, marketing group of independent Irish owners. It was the owners themselves that established it, the likes of Longville House and Mallow, Ballymaloe, and, you know, all those smaller properties at the time. They came together themselves to form the Blue Book. So, you know, the ethos was very much around food and people, obviously, but food was to the heart of it, great food. And from there it grew, you know, it has grown and expanded over the years. And I suppose it was just a good, a lot of the accommodation within the Blue Book is housed in period properties. So it was a good fit for number one. When we were asked to join, I think back in 2014, 2015 we joined. But, you know, from the outset we were lucky. We were a year open. And the McKenna Guide, who anybody in the food business would know, they're highly regarded, invited us to be part of Ireland's 100 best places to stay and eat in Ireland, and we were the only one in Limerick. And that gave us a great opportunity to market ourselves. We were invited into the Michelin Guide within a year of opening. So we're very lucky, you know, that we were found out by these people, and that gave us a great, you know, it just gave us straight into our target market. And the media, the Irish media were actually very good to us. I think they very much saw that this was something unique and new within Limerick. And I suppose, you know, Limerick people themselves, there was a great curiosity element, and I suppose a curiosity element around who's crazy enough to do this up in Pery Square. So, you know, Limerick people were really, really good to us when we opened, and they really, really supported us. We didn't have a lot of people, but those who come in really supported us really well and helped us get going.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you mentioned the word lucky a couple of times, and I know luck comes into it, but if you weren't doing the right job right in the first instance, luck wouldn't have mattered. So you got to take credit where credit is due, and credit is absolutely due to you and your vision and your team for implementing that vision consistently. You also said that you had this vision early on of, you know, Limerick itself And I moved to Limerick in 1998. I'm from Dublin. I moved to Limerick in 1998. And people were asking me, was I mad? Like, what was the issue? Did I not know what Limerick was like? And I said, I actually didn't, right? And I came down here and found it to be a wonderful place to be. Very poorly represented out there in national media and international media. And so you wanted to, underneath it all, subconsciously, you wanted to add value, if you like, to Limerick Inc. And I think you've done that in spades. It's a jewel in the crown, and it's somewhat hidden, somewhat off the beaten track. As you say, not many cars drive into it, but that's part of the magic too, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to go for it, and you've got the beautiful park across the way. Fabulous stuff. Okay, when did the three businesses start? So you obviously opened, did you start the restaurant at the same time? Did you start the spa at the same time?
The restaurant actually came first in December 2008, and the rooms kind of probably towards the end of December, early January, and the spa came in the spring of 2009. And I suppose, as the world was falling apart at the same time, the local food business helped us get established locally. And, local people have been really good to market us to their friends nationally, and come and stay at No1 Pery Square, whether you're on business travel or whether you're looking for a spa break. So I suppose at the time, spa spend was diminishing. Also, people weren't treating themselves, so the spa was probably the last part of the business to develop, and the slowest. So I suppose it was very much a real luxury for the guests that were in the hotel. They had it all to themselves for a couple of years, but it did help us build the destination. I guess we quickly realised that we had to give people reasons to come to Limerick. We were one, but usually people want more, So we did struggle with that for the first couple of years. How do we attract people to Limerick over Galway? Over maybe Westport, Clifton, Wexford Town, already established, Kilkenny, these places, which all have beautiful places to stay as well. How do we attract people? So that we really had to, I suppose, get creative about that and look at the experience, give more for the experience in-house and package with what we had locally. And so I suppose, again, through people coming through the door, between the arts, culture, heritage world of Limerick, there was just some great things done. We've had art fairs on the park. We've had Georgian markets here on the square. Again, a lot of crazy things. But we done lots of things to attract people. And, it was very slow, a slow burner, but by minding those who came and taking good care of those who came, that has helped multiply. And I suppose, again, I was very lucky with the people that we recruited from the outset. We've always been lucky, building a team. And as you grow, as building a team becomes, it can be difficult, especially in the hospitality sector. In the last few years, not the most attractive place to work. But we're very lucky now. We have a team that really cares about the customer, and I suppose that's the first thing we look for is that right attitude and the care for the customer, and can that be delivered? And our staff are known to most people by their name rather than the staff member, and that's very important to me because this is a home for them when they're away, and they got to be able to put their feet up in the drawing room and order the cup of tea from Seamus or Peter, whoever that it is. So so I suppose we've been lucky, and being small is good from that perspective. But the businesses, you asked me about the businesses, they did open, but they were all close in time frame. I suppose we also, each one of those businesses under the one roof was essential to the other, in creating the overall experience, that and Limerick together. Like the spa, while the spa spend might have diminished for 2 or 3 years there, people still liked the idea of going, whether they indulged or not. They would still, come to a hotel to check it out. So that first 2 years was really tough.
Yeah, I can imagine, and we feel for you because we all know the pain we all went through, and we hadn't a new startup business to contend with.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say, Patricia, you and No1 Pery Square led the renaissance of that whole area, the Georgian Quarter. I think that's, I think you're certainly part of the leadership team, if you like, around that renaissance, and it's working today. At least it was until COVID hit. Just before we go into that, and I'd like to touch on that in a second, if I may. You keep mentioning the word lucky, and I keep bouncing back that, you know, luck only finds you when you're doing the right stuff. You do need brand, systems and people to have a sustainable business. You've got a wonderful brand in No1 Pery Square, which is carefully crafted. You've got wonderful people, because a brand is a promise of an experience, a promise of a product, whatever it might be. Yours is a promise of a unique overnight experience. And you need wonderful people to implement that promise through the systems that you've built, and that's what we're seeing. That's why somebody knows it's home from home. They can arrive and order the cup of tea in the drawing room from Seamus, and everything happens seamlessly. So bula bus to you and your team. Well done. It's great. Okay, when we were chatting about you coming on the show, and thank you for coming on the show. This is lovely morning for us. Thank you. You mentioned, and you sort of broke my heart as to how you explained what happened on the 12th of March. Would you talk to me about, or talk to us about?
Sure. I suppose it was like just a train crash, really, I guess, in lots of ways. And, you know, it's like, we had a great January, February. I suppose just to wheel back a little bit, we've had a good couple of years. We did big development last year on the ground floor, and we're sailing and looking at new opportunities to grow the business, and I suppose looking more at Limerick as well, and the whole quarter, what we can do to help there. So lots of great things happening and lots of great plans and all of that. And yeah, so March came, and it was, I suppose, we were actually about to create 2 new spaces downstairs, and all this was happening on like Wednesday, Thursday, and by Friday of that week, I suppose we all know what happened. COVID hit us like it was just like a train crash, really. And I suppose for me personally, when it happened first, it was the shock. I suppose it was, I did spend 24 hours just taking it in, the shock. And then we quickly, I suppose, had to get into gear when the realization was that we had 40 staff members here who probably would have no job by the following week. And that we had to preserve conservation of the business, and preserve as much as we could and take care of the people who've helped to bring the business to where it is today. And I suppose I'm lucky, you know, we're in the last few years, we've developed a good management team, which is headed up by Breed Nash, a Clare lady, and nearly a Limerick lady. And so I have that support within the hotel, which is great, you know, the things that you don't have at the early stage of a business. And I suppose, so we got together and we sat down and we said, oh, like, you know, this is coming, we have to face it. But at the same time, I think there was a little bit of denial. We felt that, you know, people were going to be out of a job in the short term for a couple of weeks, but, you know, we'd be back at it. You know, there was still part of us thinking, you know, give this 2 or 3 weeks and we'll be back. This is just, it's a short term, it's going to be short term, but it's a big hit, but we'll be back. So I suppose facing up to it all, and I suppose letting our staff know what was coming down the line. Many of them, I suppose, were aware, but at the same time, when it hits you and, you know, you personally, and it's your job, it can be a very difficult pill to swallow. So we got everybody together and explained where we were at. And I suppose everybody could see it, but at the same time, you know, the unknown, we're all going into the unknown. It was very hard to give people answers. So we made a decision on the Sunday that we would, I think it was on the Sunday, that we would close on the Monday. And at that point, we felt we were the only person who was going to close their hotel in Limerick. And because we knew we were small, customers had stopped. There was no customers for a few days. We're a people looking after people business. So lots of labor. Labor is one of those things, if it's not managed properly in this business, you go under very fast. So we were very conscious of that we had to just press the stop. So we made a decision to do that on the Monday, and it was difficult, and we put a message out to all our customers. We had met all the staff the day before. Breed got everybody together. We sat down, we spoke to them all, we explained what we did, social welfare forms for everybody, and we got the ball rolling on that. But again, there was still that feeling we would be back, very fast. So the Monday came, we made the announcement and we closed the doors officially on St. Patrick's Day. We had some people, we had a couple of two or three people with us in from the States who weren't flying until that day. So we stayed open to look after them until St. Patrick's Day, and then we shut the doors. So then on, I suppose it was probably another week, it was the shock we were all dealing with at that point. But I guess, as those days passed, as many people, and I'm sure in the cafe know, things evolved and we realised the real seriousness of this, and it became a question, would we ever open again? And but that was short-lived, thankfully. I suppose my job then was to get myself into the right mindset of where we really are at, and yes, there is a future, but let's try and see where that future is. And I suppose having gone through the recession, 10 years ago, I knew that I had to look after my own self first to get my mind right to be able to plan for the business. So I suppose I took a little bit of reflection time to do that over a week or two, and just to really think that through, where are we going? And you know what, the time has been a pure gift. It really has. That reflection time has been amazing. We don't have it, my husband George and I have 3 small boys from 6 to 10, and we just never have had that time in 10 years since they were born. And so that has been amazing, a pure gift. And as I said, reflection is great too, because it makes you really relook at your whole vision, where you're going. And I suppose there's part of me then in the last few weeks is saying there has to be opportunity from this. What is that opportunity? And soul searching for that opportunity. Because we've come through other difficult, nothing is like this, but other difficult situations, there's opportunity in everything. So I guess we're months down the road now. Our staff have been very good to us, even though they've all been laid off, they've been really good to us. They want to get back, and they want to get back delivering what we do and what we do well for our customers. So in the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's all been since the government has given us the roadmap for reopening. It's been exciting because we're now back looking at what can we do? What can we do differently? Yes, there is the challenge that we're starting, from scratch at the outset. We believe, we will climb fast, hopefully, but we are going back to, a smaller team to begin with, and we'll have to grow that back up. So that is a challenge, but at the same time, there's excitement around, recreating and the next chapter, I guess.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And thank you for touching on that. Yes, indeed, Tim Kelly started the bus there. I suppose just to honour you and your team for taking the steps that you had to take to preserve the business. You started by saying our business is all about people looking after people, and your people look after their people, as in their customers, because you look after your people. And that was very obvious in, when you painted that picture of you got them all together. And you sat down and you explained to them what was going on, and then you took the time to go through the social welfare forms with them. There's a beauty in that, there's a magic in that a lot of people need to learn from, okay, because they clearly feel it's outside your control. They're not blaming No1 Pery Square or Patricia, right? And then they've stayed with you, and you went on to say that months later they've been very good to you. That's just a lovely, lovely sentiment. You spoke about you need to look after yourself first. We've been saying that for years. Put on your own oxygen mask first.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're useless to everybody else around you. So hats off to you for doing that and for being aware to do that. Self-reflection. Love the fact that you've accepted and agreed and put it out there that the time is a pure gift. I think a lot of us are feeling that. So nice to hear you say that as well. And then the other thing I love that you said is within it there's opportunity. Within this whole time there's opportunity, which brings us neatly to, you're going to reopen very soon. What's the future looking like?
And I suppose, it's funny, I keep looking back to 10 years ago where my vision was clear and nobody was getting in the way. It was just failure wasn't an option, it had to happen. And whereas now there's so much out of our control. that's what's so different, I guess, for anybody running a business or whatever you're doing, is when things are out of your control, it makes it very difficult. But I think there's huge comfort in the fact that we're not all in the same boat, but we are in it together. And there is huge comfort there. And I certainly have taken a lot of comfort from that. I think I probably wouldn't have been able to hold it all together otherwise. So I suppose the future is the next chapter. I think it's like we've taken the time to, reflect personally and reflect on the brand, No1 Pery Square. And, I suppose it has brought us back to where we started, to the core of what we're all about. And, we did look at, do we need to change? What do we need to change within what our offering is? And how much do we need to change? And we do need to make changes, but probably not as many as we would have thought 3 weeks ago. But going through that process has been very valuable because, again, as anyone running a small business knows, there's never time. There's never enough time. And time spent on your business is so valuable rather than in it, but we just don't get it. And so the next chapter, I suppose, again, there's been lots of things we wanted to do for the business, but we hadn't had the time. So re-looking at all those things and I suppose creating more unique experiences. I think going forward, Limerick has a great opportunity in the, we're hopefully we'll all be looking after the domestic market for the next 12 months. I think Limerick has a great opportunity there because Limerick is not known in the leisure circles for the domestic market. But look at what we have, from built heritage to experiences in the county, and combining the county and the city, the Golden Vale, the food elements, the attractions with what we have in the city. I think we have a great offering. We have a new Limerick brand. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really put Limerick on the domestic tourism to the front of that first. I have just taken up a role of chairing a new working group for Fáilte Ireland here locally, which is looking at Limerick as a gateway to the Wild Atlantic Way, which to me Limerick always was because of the River Shannon. And I think that, so I think the opportunities are big. It has been slow coming. 10 years ago, we would have thought we'd be there within 3 or 4 years. It takes a hell of a lot longer, but it is happening for Limerick. So I suppose being part of that and adding to that as much as we can.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, indeed, the Buddha bus has started there for you and for all you do. Really interesting. Despite the fact that you're so busy in your own role, you mentioned that when we've got our own businesses, we can too often work in our business and there isn't time to work on our businesses. Greta, we have bad news for you. There'll never be time. We cannot wave a magic wand and give you more time. So we've got to focus on priorities as opposed to, it's not about time management, that doesn't work. Priority management is what works. But this reflection time will allow you perhaps go back in with a slightly different time frame, mindset. Just that said, on top of everything, you decided to chair this committee because you're absolutely a believer of a rising tide will lift all boats. And so you're in it for Limerick. The new brand, Limerick Edge Embrace, is just fantastic. Edge of the Atlantic, embracing Europe. It's just wonderful. And so it speaks perfectly to what Limerick is and can be. And I think with your vision, it'll become a reality over time. So we want to wish you every success in No1 Pery Square and everything, Patricia, that you get involved in. Well done.
Thank you.
Listen, thank you for joining us this morning on the Cafe 11 show. It's been a pleasure having a chat with you. We're not letting you go just now, right? But I just want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure listening to your story. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, Buddha bus. So we are going to go to Q&A from the floor. But before we do, I'm going to ask you, if I may, for one tip. What one thing would you say to your nearest and dearest? You get through COVID, come out in best shape by doing blah. What's the blah for Patricia, please?
I think there was lots of tips coming to mind when you asked this question, Colm. Actually, I suppose one of the most important things is I'm a great believer in vision. Visualise where you want to be and make the plan and you'll get there. And don't let anything get in your way. And I suppose I was always very much that way, focused to myself. I said, vision, your vision is for you to create, but it's also for you to carve that plan to get there. And, the vision could be something as simple as working a 3-day week versus a 5, or doing more exercise, whatever that vision is. But really take the time to think it through write it down, and then it will happen. Because I think, and I have gone through this, struggling. Where are you going? Where are we going? Where are we going? What's all this for? Going through that process with oneself. But, visualize it, set realistic targets, and just go for it. I suppose the other little tip is the reflection time for me in the last few weeks. It has been so precious. And I think one of the things I had done was stop trusting my gut enough in the last few years as we've been busy. So the reflection time to be able to really reflect on what the real me is has been wonderful. So take the time to reflect and visualize where you want to be and go for it. I think, yeah. That sounds right.
That sounds perfect, absolutely perfect. Right? Beautiful, yeah, indeed. Absolutely beautiful. Trust your gut. You'd stop trusting your gut.
Yeah. I think I had, as the business grew bigger, and I did go through that process. For a couple of years after recession, as we were building, the fear was still there because of what we'd come out of. I did read your book, Colm. Actually, I was trying to remember when I was on a long distance flight somewhere, and I had one memory of, I think in your book you mentioned something about take one chapter at a time, slowly. Was there something? This came back to me this morning, but I remember being on a long distance flight, opening your book and saying, I have to keep going to the end. But one of your clear messages in the book was, take your time reading the chapters and take the time to take it in. But I might have broken that rule, and I just wanted to know what all these tips were. But yeah, that's...
I love it. And come here, $5 in the post there for reading the book. Well done, you. Yeah. For the plug. Yeah. Right, Christina O'Shaughnessy is going to zoom in from Geneva with a question.
I think you've answered most of the questions. My first question was, and I think you've answered it, what are the things people are looking for, and this human connection. I think that's the absolutely most important one, and I think that's what we Irish, my husband's not around, he's from Argentina, that's what Irish people offer more than any other people I know. I haven't travelled that much. I've travelled perhaps in 30 countries, but the Irish are very special at hospitality. And that is wonderful. And the other thing is that I'm probably I'm an editor, and I'm editing a book about a Limerick man who died in the Spanish Civil War. And we're probably launching the book in Limerick it's a UCD publication. We're probably launching it in November, December. And I'd like to stay in your hotel, of course, now. It's so tempting. Yes. Very tempted. But your attitude to people, that I was most impressed to hear that, because I think everybody else would agree that that's essential. No matter how beautiful, how elegant the hotel is, if the staff aren't nice to you, or if there isn't a human connection, if they don't look at you, I live in France, and they're not as friendly as the Irish, and they're very formal. I don't know what your experience is of French hotels, but they're more formal. That's fine too. You behave formally with them. But in Ireland, you kind of, you almost expect them to send you a postcard, or you will send them a postcard when you get home. You make friends very, very quickly, and that's beautiful. So well done, and good luck with your projects. Thanks.
Thank you.
Christina, thank you. That was lovely. That was a lovely intervention. Thank you very much indeed. And I was delighted when I saw the book and the hotel connection there coming together. Of course, Patricia O'Brien, who is our editor-in-chief on the Coffee at 11 show, she works with O'Mahony's, so she'd be delighted.
Right. Okay.
Consider your launch is sorted A to Z. Right. Okay. Listen, thanks for that, Christina. Lovely stuff. And Valerie O'Connor, where are you? Valerie O'Connor. I'm going to bring Valerie in and pass to Princess Shelley.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi,
I really just came on this because it was you.
Oh.
So yeah, I guess listen to you talk about the story of the hotel. And when I moved back to Limerick, it was about 12 years ago now. You just opened Pery Square, and the hotel being there was like, you made this cultural hub. I know that it was a real challenge to go from what people would say posh, kind of everyman, and make it, but you managed to get this sort of, I don't know, kind of classy yet groovy thing going on, which was amazing, because I only live around the corner from the hotel, and I worked at 1 Pery Square in the capacity of, I used to call myself the Manuel of the hotel. I was the gardener. I did some cooking demonstrations, I did photography, I don't know, I did a whole load of things, but it was really nice for me to just be able to go from here and go over there and feel as well, I felt from my point of view that I was having some kind of influence too on the way, you know, and I was working for Bridgestone Guides as well, so there were so many things. And yeah, just listening to you now, I realised that you and No1 Pery Square was a massive part of my moving back to Limerick, you know, and kind of connecting here. So, and I remember as well that I still have a night's stay on her. I just remember that when I was listening to you, I was looking around my little Georgian living room and I said, oh my God, I have to clean it. So I just put myself and turned off my video and started.
If I remember correctly, Val, you were due to come to stay the week after COVID hit.
I was.
I think they had to cancel you.
Yeah, you did, but you know where you live.
Yeah.
So, I know.
You know, it's people like Val who, you know, who really support us. They're the Limerick people I'm talking about. I'd be afraid of my life to start putting names up, but people, you know, Val's love of food, I think that's where we hit it off initially. You know, and Christina, you spoke about Irish people. You know, now more than ever, we need to go back to where we come from and I suppose look at what really makes Ireland, or what makes people tick about Ireland. It's the people is one. We love France. George and I, children, we love France. We love to get to France, but we know what our uniqueness is in Ireland. It's people, but it's also the great larder we have in this country, you know, and Val and I would have had many a rant about the lack of use of you know, as I said from the outset, I come from a dairy farm background. We grew up on raw milk. We grew up on proper butter, bread on the table every day, the basics that unfortunately we struggle for all our children to have. You know, I have to drive to the other side of town to get raw milk for my children, you know, so, but these things are, you know, and that's what Ireland is really good at. We're not, you know, that larder that we have and the people combined.
I think that's really started to eke in the last few years.
It has.
Co-op and neighbour food and everything now, that kind of thing is more normal, whereas 10 years ago we were all just hippies in our Birkenstocks.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Hippies in their Birkenstocks.
I'm still a hippie in my Birkenstocks. But
there's a phrase. There's a phrase. Listen, Valerie, thanks for popping in. No offence taken, by the way, the fact that you only came in because Patricia was in the seat. Hey,
you got a good guest.
Given that you're a guest on the show in the past, but hey, we know where you live, as you say yourself. Right. Going to go over to Princess Shelley. Princess Shelley, thank you.
Hey, some lovely comments, Patricia, for you coming in throughout your conversation there with Colm. Tim Kelly was first in. He's our regular. He's here every day in the cafe. It's so lovely to have you, Tim. He said, number one is one of the most beautiful places in Limerick, an amazing place to stay or meet someone for a coffee. Well done, Patricia, for bringing your vision to life. So thank you very much. And Bridget in Dalkey is giving a round of applause there, initiating that. Thank you, Bridget. And then we had Katrina O'Brien, who is coming to us live in O'Mahony's at the moment, our editor-in-chief. She said she loves that it's always peaceful up at number one. I've had afternoon tea up there a few times and visited the spa. I can highly recommend. Isn't that lovely, Patricia?
Thank you.
And then Jan comes in. Jan has been in the cafe before. Jan has joined us today and says, what I like is that it's such a beautiful experience for locals as well, having a cuppa or a massage there, not just a place for a tourist to stay. You also see that in the support Patricia always has for other local businesses and ideas, whether it's Limerick Fringe or using local producers for their amazing food. That's great feedback, Patricia, isn't it?
Thank you.
So I think that pretty much, other than that, I think Marie popped in there. She said she was a little late joining, but has enjoyed listening to your story, Patricia. You've built a wonderful brand in Limerick. I'm wishing you the very best for reopening. Hope everyone is well in Clarina. And that's not actually Marie, that's Irene Hamilton coming in from Scattery Tours. I saw her pop in there, and that's a lovely comment to come out from Irene there, isn't it, Patricia? And then finally, it was just Christina said that she forgot to mention that you make a wonderful ambassador for Limerick. And I think that brings a lovely end to the comment section. A nice round of applause. You've been a great guest, and I'll hand you back over to the host, Patricia. Thank you so much for your great words today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Princess Shelley, for those, and for everybody for engaging, for being here in the first instance, and then for engaging with those lovely comments. It's one of my favourite parts of the show, where I get to sit back and sip coffee and just have a listen to what's been going on, because prior to that, myself and Patricia in full flow. Actually, I was just thinking there that one of the last meetings I had pre-COVID was in No1 Pery Square at Tom Marquetta Dowling. Bumped into you, Patricia, but also bumped into the lovely Valerie O'Connor there. Cheeky, lovely Valerie O'Connor. And we said a quick hello. And, but listen, it's been a pleasure. It really is. And for those of you that haven't experienced the magic moments in No1 Pery Square, you know, get yourselves down there, pop in and say hello, because you're now part of the family. And Patricia, it's just been a pleasure. Thank you for this morning. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I want to thank the team as ever. I want to thank Princess Shelley for producing today's show, Amy Smith for keeping us safe and secure, Katrina O'Brien for making it beautiful. Thank you for that. Katrina goes to work when the rest of us begin to kick back. I want to thank wigwam.ie, SME peer support for their ongoing support. And before I let you all go, I want to tell you about what's happening tomorrow. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And tomorrow we have a regular cafe goer is joining us tomorrow for a very special Coffee at 11 show. And it's Bridget McLaughlin. And Bridget McLaughlin is a reformed journalist. I've decided to use that terminology. She's a reformed journalist, right? Was a journal with the Sunday Indo and the Sunday Times in London back in the day. Sunday Indo obviously here. And she's now a folklorist. She's owner, proprietor of Biddy's Cottage in Dalkey, which is all about wholesome and heritage and food and all that good stuff. She's a folklorist and a folk artist. And Patricia, if you have some time tomorrow, you're welcome to come back in and have a listen. There'll be a great connection to be made there. But I'm so looking forward to chatting to Bridget tomorrow and finding out where the journey has taken her since I was a fan back in the day when she was a journalist. So folks, that concludes today's Coffee at 11 show this beautiful Thursday. Just to say, Patricia Roberts, namaste.
Thank you so much.